Friday in a 6-count complaint that included recklessly endangering safety and both reckless and intentional homicide in the deaths of 2 people and the injury of a 3rd. He is fighting extradition from his home state of Illinois with a hearing set for September 25th. Joining us now, State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Aronberg. Dave, we've got a lot to talk to you about this morning, but we'll start with Kyle Rittenhouse. What's the argument in his defense?
Good morning, Mika. Kyle Rittenhouse's lawyers are setting up for a self-defense claim. But keep in mind, he was the one who put this whole night of violence into motion. He was the one who traveled across state lines as a 17-year-old to possess a weapon he was not allowed to possess, to stand guard outside of a used car lot that no one asked him to stand guard at. And so he was the initial aggressor. And under the initial aggressor doctrine, he's not entitled to self-defense unless he makes it clear that he's abandoning the fight, or if the others come at him using excessive force. And according to the videos from that night, it doesn't look like either of those claims hold water, because the first person who Rittenhouse allegedly shot in the head didn't seem to have any deadly weapon. The second person whom Rittenhouse allegedly shot in the chest and killed came at him with a skateboard. And although the lawyers for Rittenhouse will surely say that a guy wielding a skateboard could be very dangerous, you tell that to a jury that Rittenhouse, who had an AR-15, was in reasonable fear of his life from a guy with a skateboard. And I think that the first-degree murder charges here may need to be dropped down to second-degree murder or manslaughter, because I don't know if all the elements are there for first-degree murder, but instead of life in prison, he could face 60 years in prison. So it's still essentially life. And another thing that we need to be concerned about is what you all mentioned earlier, is that what kind of message does this send to other young, disaffected people who sympathize with these culture wars when you hold this guy up to be a hero? There's hundreds of thousands of dollars being raised for his defense fund. Well, that encourages other vigilantes to go into conflict zones and possibly take other lives, knowing that they too could be a hero on the far right. That puts everyone at risk.
It's absolute chaos. John Lemire is with us and asks a question for you. Jonathan.
Dave, I mean, what we saw here, as you just said, the Kyle Rittenhouse has become sort of a champion on the far right. Fox News, Tucker Carlson in particular, has gone out of his way to defend his actions. We saw the president on the weekend endorse on social media what he did, but also what we saw in Portland, eulogizing the person who was killed there, touting those who support him, who sort of had that caravan through Portland streets as patriots. So I want to get your take on that, if we could shift from Wisconsin to Oregon. From what you've seen from the videos, the sort of the marches, the clashes between the two groups, the protesters on either side of this, you know, what sort of charges, what could we be looking at there in terms of a law enforcement response? What would you see if that was your jurisdiction?
Jonathan, if someone was killed by a protester in Portland, it doesn't matter if that person is from the left or from the right, there could be murder charges. We don't even know yet the name of the victim. The investigation will continue, and I hope justice prevails there. But remember, this is a lot of incitement. When the president says this is Joe Biden's America, we need to remember who is currently in the White House, and there's been incitement to send people, and through Facebook, and I know Joe loves to talk about this, that these Facebook groups are there and they send people to these conflict zones, and so we should not be surprised that deaths occur. Plus, you can see where people get so outraged, because when you have a case of Jacob Blake where he was shot 7 times in the back because police thought he was reaching into a car for a weapon, and you compare it to a Kyle Rittenhouse, a white kid, a 17-year-old who actually had a weapon strapped to his chest, an AR-15, and he ends up walking by police waving at them, even though everyone was yelling he had just shot 2 people. You can see why our streets are so, they're up in flames. And it's important that we condemn all violence on both sides, but we also need to have those important conversations about racial inequities in our criminal justice system, because if this continues, it undermines faith in the criminal justice